Hey guys, good afternoon. My name is Teresa, and today I'll be teaching you how to make your very own virtual assistant. Before we begin, let me just describe a scenario. If you use a Samsung, for instance, and then you say "Hey Bixby," and Bixby says, "Hey, how can I help you?" And then you say, "Play me some music," or I don't know, you give a command and your assistant says, "I didn't get that." What do you do at that point in time? What exactly do you do? Sometimes you might just have to repeat yourself over and over again before your assistant can hear you, and sometimes you just get so frustrated and you just have to do it by yourself. But why are these virtual assistants there? They're there to help you. They're there to save you the stress of typing over your phone or having to do things the manual way. So today I will teach you how to create your own virtual assistant from scratch. Let's begin. So for my lesson, I'll be using PyCharm, and I would create a new project. You could use Visual Studio Code if you have it, or any other virtual environment you could use. So you click on a new file, a new Python file here, and I would name it my virtual assistant. PY. There you go. And there it is. Our virtual assistant project is open. So if you're familiar with Python, or if you've started learning just like me, you would know that before you start a project you have to import some modules, and modules contain variables and functions that helps to execute tasks, help to execute your codes, either on a particular project or what have you. So we're going to import some modules, speech recognition, and some other modules that would help us to execute this project successfully. The very first module we'll be importing will be PyTTSX3. If you're using PyCharm and you do not have this module, you would have to install it by going to File, by going to Settings here, and after getting to Settings you would see the virtual environment for your project, and you will see the modules that has been installed in your virtual environment. For me, I already have it installed, so I don't have to install it anymore. I just have to import it. So as you can see here, I have PyTTSX3 installed over here, so I don't have to install it anymore. But if you don't have it installed, you could always click on this button here. Once you click on this button, you search for the module you want to import, PyTTSX3, and you install it straight away. So without wasting time, let's get back to work. So I would import PyTTSX3. If you don't want to install PyTTSX3 using the method I show you, you could always use your command prompt by typing, let me commence this, pip install PyTTSX3. So that's another way you can install it on your computer. So we've imported PyTTSX3. Let's import the next module. The next module we need is the datetime function. DataQuest as a lesson on date and time functions. I believe you should check it out, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So we import datetime function. The datetime function helps to enable our virtual assistant to get us the date and time which we want. And like I said earlier, we're going to import speech recognition. Like you see, I have it installed on my laptop, and I'm going to import it using an alias method of importing. and you could also check that on DataQuest site. It is under the lesson for date and time. You will find it very interesting. So now that we've imported these basic modules, let us start assigning our codes to variables. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to initialize the pyttsx3 module which we imported. We're going to assign it to a variable called engine is equal to pyttsx3.init and tab. So this is a one-time initialization of our text to speech function. So once we've done that, we've initialized pyttsx3 and we can now use it for this project. So the next thing we'll do is, since we have a text to speech function, since we have our text to speech function, then we can go ahead to set the properties for our virtual assistant. That is the rate we want it to talk, the speed rates, the pause and play rate, and all that. So we're going to see that shortly. So since we've assigned our first time initialization to the variable engine, then we could set our properties by using the same variable name by saying engine.setProperty. SetProperty is a function within the module pyttsx3. So we have set property here, and then we set our rates, which is the argument we're passing. Then we could set, I'm setting my rate to 150. So the rate of speed at which my virtual assistant is going to be talking, I've set it to 150. Then I'll set my volume also. I would want to hear my virtual assistant loud and clear, and I would set the volume here, and I would set it to 0.9. Then I want to determine the voice for my virtual assistant. I would want to know whether I want my virtual assistant's voice to be the voice of a male or a female. So let's do that. So we're going to assign this to a new variable called voices here. Voices is equal to engine the get property, since we're setting another property here. This is a new class, so that is get property. Get property, then voices. So now that we have that assigned to the variable, then we can set the property for the voice which we want. Voices engine.setProperty, engine.setProperty. Then we assign it just like we did the other's voice. Then the next argument we pass into this is the voice that we want, which is a female voice. I want a female voice. You could assign either 0 or 1 to this. I assigned 1. 1 stands for the female voice, and if you want the male voice, of course you could just put 0 as the argument. Then we could finally tell our virtual assistant to say something for the first time, and how we're going to do that is to use the function .say. So we're going to use the first time initialization variable engine.say, and I want my virtual assistant to call me mom. So I'm gonna say, hello mom, how are you doing? Yeah, so this converts this text to speech, and then we want our virtual assistant to run normally. I mean, we don't want to type a long text subsequently and our virtual assistant just reads through without making a pause or trying to observe the punctuation and all. So there's one last thing we need to add, which is the engine run and wait. So the first time initialization variable engine, then we use the run and wait function. So what this function does is it helps the virtual assistant to maintain certain breaks after each statement or sentence. Also, if you have a long sentence and you have punctuation marks, like I said, this function helps your virtual assistant to observe them carefully, so you don't have a robotic speaking virtual assistant. So now let us run and wait. So let us run this and hear what our virtual assistant has to say.
Hello Mom, how are you doing?
Let's do that once again.
Hello Mom, how are you doing?
Yep, perfect. So the next thing we're going to do now is to define certain functions that would help us to improve our virtual assistant to be able to do more, and you would see that shortly. Now everything I've typed above is quite a long process, and we want to define a function that encapsulates all of this and helps us to just do it at once. Now what am I talking about? If you're familiar with Python, you know that apart from our inbuilt functions, we also have the capacity to create our functions ourselves that we can assign certain properties to. So we want to create a function now that helps us to do all of this that I've typed earlier once and for all, so that we use that one single function to do everything that I've typed over here. So it helps us to reduce redundancy and it improves the effectiveness of our codes. So let's define this function now. I'm going to call this function speak. I'm going to pass arguments audio. So what do I want my function to do? I want my function to speak by saying engine.say the audio will be our text, and the engine to run and wait. Of course, we know the reason why we are using this. So now that we've defined our function, let us test run this by asking our virtual assistant to convert a text to speech. Now what do I want my assistant to say? Let's say today is a beautiful day, by using our newly defined speak function. So speak. Today is a beautiful day. Let us test run this and hear what our virtual assistant has to say.
Hello Mom, how are you doing? Today is a beautiful day.
Perfect. Now let us go one step ahead and move to using our datetime function. If you remember, at the beginning of this class we imported the datetime function and we need to now put it to use. We don't want our virtual assistants to just welcome us alone. We want our virtual assistants to be able to get the date, the current time, to be able to tell us what the time is, to be able to tell us what today's date is and all that. So now we're going to define a function using the datetime function which we imported earlier, and we are going to create a new function to do this. Let's do it. So we are going to define a function, and I'm going to name it time, and time is equal to, this is what I want my function to do, time. Note that we are using datetime, because we want to use the class or the function within the datetime module itself that can work with the date and the time functions, that can work with the date and time variables or arguments within our codes. So there are different classes under the datetime module itself, but I'm sure you could get that online and you could read up on it, or better still, you can check the squares lesson on date and time functions. So we do datetime.now because we want to know the time now, right now, and want to create a string of how we want our date and time to be structured. So we're going to use time. It's a function also, and we're going to arrange it in hours, minutes, and seconds. So let us pass this arguments. We use the percentage sign for the hours because we want the format hours, minutes, and seconds. So now, once our function has deduced what the current time is, we want our virtual assistant to do us the favor of now speaking this out, speaking the date, the time, the current time that we are in. So let us say we're going to use our speak function, which we defined earlier, and it's going to be the time is then we're going to speak time. Sorry, made a mistake there. Speak the time. So before I run this, let me tell you what is going to come out of it. So we are telling our virtual assistant to read what the current time is. Then before the virtual assistant tells us what the time is, he or she, depending on the gender is selected, says the time is, and then it speaks the time which it has deduced, and we expect it to tell us the current time that we are in. So let us test run this by running our new function, by calling the function time. So I'm going to commence this so that it doesn't run again from the beginning. So we just want to know our current time. Let's run this now. Let's listen. Okay. I defined my function, but I forgot to put the colon. So this should work.
The time is 16 hours 49 minutes and 9 seconds.
Awesome. So now our virtual assistants can tell us what the time is. What is next is the dates function. Now, to define the dates function, we are going to create a function called here. Now, in our here, we're going to use the datetime function as usual, and we're going to assign this to a variable called here. We're going to make it an integer, and yeah, date time. Remember I told you that there are different classes under the datetime module itself. So we're using datetime here .now, like we used earlier, and we're going to make it .here since we want to apply the here function. Remember I told you the datetime function can work with both the date and the time variables, so which is why we're using datetime. Remember, the first datetime is the module, the second datetime is the class under that module. So now amount is equal to integer. Now we're going to use datetime again .now, then we're going to assign it to, since we're looking for the month, that's month, and we do the same for the day. Yeah, you guessed it right. So is equal to teacher date time dot date time dot now, then dot, sure you guessed it right, dot day. Correct. So we are now going to ask our virtual assistant to speak the year, the month, and the day, the current date time, the current date, which is the year, the month, and the date we're in. So let's do this using our speak function. You see how the speak function now comes in handy. So just like we did for our time, we want our virtual assistant to tell us first what today's date is, and we want the virtual assistant to start by saying today's date is, because that's only proper. Today's date is, then of course speak the dates, the year first, then speak the month, and of course last but not the least, speak the day. Yeah, so you could construct, or you could put this in any way. You could start with day, month, then year, or you could start with month, anyhow you want it. So let us now call our new function here. Let us comment this so it doesn't speak the time for now, and let us run this. Okay. Hold on a minute, we need to put our brackets here. Yeah, so we're good to go. Let us run this.
The time is, today's date is 2020 8/31.
Correct. Let us run this again while I comment this.
Today's date is 2020 8/31.
Awesome. Now let us put all of this together, which is going to be the final part of this video. Let us put all of this together and create a function where our virtual assistant greets us anytime we open it up. You know, the first thing our virtual assistant says, hi there, today's date is da 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 da. So we're going to do that right now. So we're going to create a final function that encapsulates all we have been creating since. So I'm going to name this greet me, and we want to be sure we're not making any mistakes here. So we are going to ask our assistant to speak, hello there, welcome, how are you doing today? Okay, then we end our, then next hour is equal to the time dot date time dot hour, sorry, dot now plus dot hour. Then what we're trying to do here, let me just explain real quick. We want our virtual assistant to greet us according to the hour of the day. So we want our virtual assistant to be able to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on the hours of the day we're using. So that's exactly what we want to do right now. So we're going to ask our virtual assistant to say good morning based on a particular hour of the day, good afternoon based on a particular hour of the day, good evening, and all of that. So to do this, we're going to use our conditional statements. We're going to use an if statement. So if our, which we have defined above, is greater than or equal to 6. Now we're using the 24-hour time frame, so please take note. And less than or equal to 12, then we'd say virtual assistant, please say good morning. But if not, which is if our is greater than 12 or equal to greater than or equal to 12 and our less than or equal to 18, then please speak good afternoon. Okay, elif again, our is greater than or equal to 18 and less than or equal to 24. Speak good evening, of course. Good evening. And we want to add a final condition that if it is none of all these hours, please speak good night. Okay, so after this if statements, we want our virtual assistant to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, or good night. And after this, it tells us the time, which we have defined with the time function above. So time. And lastly, after time, virtual assistant, we want you to say the year, which we've defined also. And of course, finally, I want to name my virtual assistant Theresa. Yeah, Theresa at your service. How may I help you today? Okay, so that is our compiled function. Let us finally run this function and see what we get. Let's hope there's no error. Now let's do this. Greet me. And before we do that, let us ensure we don't have any pending function we haven't commented. Okay, so let's comment this. Let's comment this. And I think we're good to go. Yeah, let's do this. Fingers crossed.
Hello there. Welcome. How are you doing today? Good afternoon. Today's date is 2020 8/31. Teresa at your service. How may I help you today?
This is beautiful, don't you think? This is awesome. Now we have just created our first virtual assistant to convert text to speech. Who's excited? So there's more to this, because we would have to now go a bit further by enabling our virtual assistant to, taking our voices now, not pressing text, but now telling our virtual assistant taking our voices, which will require us to go a whole new level. I'll cover this in another video, and I hope you would click on subscribe. You're going to like this video. I want to specifically thank DataQuest. DataQuest has been helpful in my data science journey, and they've been awesome. If you're just starting out in data science, or you want to learn how to program, or you want to go into data engineering, name it, please enroll on Data Quest. I'm sure you're going to have fun. I mean, you're going to learn, you're going to work on hands-on projects, you're going to learn as you go, and I believe that you're going to have fun on the way. It is a good opportunity to be a scholar at Data Quest and to have learned so much, to be able to pass down this knowledge to people. And so I am begging you to please not let this opportunity slip you by. Enroll on Data Quest. I'll leave the link below, so click on it and start learning. Have fun with your virtual assistant, and do come by to the second part of this video. Thank you. Bye. Happy coding.